Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Welcome to our webinar, Study Secrets, a Guide to Setting Children Up for Success. My name is Michelle and I am the proud owner of Tutoring Club of McLean. Tonight's webinar is the first in a three-part series targeting tips for different age groups on how to help them be successful students with those study skills. And this webinar, of course, is focused on grades K through 4, and we have a lot of great information coming for you tonight. At the end of this webinar, we will have the opportunity to answer your questions live. So throughout the presentation, feel free to go ahead and enter those into the Q&A down below. So let's go ahead and get started. Our panelists tonight are three wonderful women with a lot of collective knowledge about early childhood development and education. We're so thrilled to have them with us today. I'll give you a quick intro right now, and then they'll each have the opportunity a little bit later in this presentation to talk more about their services. So first up, we have Dr. Diana Bermudez from the Amare Center. Diana is a psychotherapist specializing in young children. For over 20 years, she has helped children, parents, and professionals to enhance emotional health and decrease challenging behaviors through her trainings, coaching, and therapy. She is an art therapist, a doctor in counseling, a licensed counselor in Virginia, a certified pyramid model trainer and coach. She's certified in TheraPlay, a children's yoga instructor, and candidate for infant mental health endorsement in Virginia. That is a mouthful, Diana. Do you say that every time you meet people? My goodness.
I appreciate you doing all of that. Thank you, Michelle.
She has conducted research and published articles and book chapters with the goal of making therapeutic interventions accessible to minority populations. She is the owner of Amare Counseling and Education, where she provides family counseling and mental health consultation for education centers in person and online. Welcome, Diana. We're so excited to have you here tonight.
It's my honor. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. And then next we have Whitney Taylor from the Wise family. Hi, Whitney.
Hi, good evening.
After receiving her undergrad with a minor in child psychology in 2004, Whitney worked as an elementary school teacher for 3 years and then eventually moving into middle school teaching. She recently completed her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling at Bradley University, and she currently works at the Wise family as a resident in counseling. Whitney has a commitment to tailoring therapy to meet the needs of any child by incorporating a variety of techniques. She does this by cultivating a strength-based model, utilizing mindfulness-based approaches in an environment of trust, kindness, and honesty. She works with her clients to set and achieve goals while building a foundation of resiliency that results in lasting and positive change. Welcome, Whitney. We're so happy that you're with us tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
And then last but certainly not least, we have our very own Fran S. Fran has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in education. She has taught all age groups from preschool to college over the course of her career. She started teaching the Orton-Gillingham reading method to dyslexic middle and high school students at the Foreman School in Connecticut. That sparked a lifelong interest in how reading issues, executive functioning skills, dyslexia, and self-esteem are all linked to academic success. Her belief is that children will succeed academically when they feel confident in their abilities in the classroom. Fran also taught child psychology and adolescent development for over 15 years at a community college in Wellesley, Massachusetts. She recently worked as a substitute teacher at a private Montessori-based elementary school in Baltimore, and now we are so lucky to have her working with us as a Tutoring Club of McLean educator and Orton-Gillingham and Wilson Reed specialist. Fran, welcome tonight. We're excited to have you here as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everyone. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss.
Yay! And you have so much great insight to share along with Diana and Whitney. Looking forward to it. So such great experience joining us tonight. I don't know about everybody that's on this presentation, but I am so excited to hear what tips they have to share. Tonight, I have the pleasure of moderating our presentation with my co-host, Catherine Carroll. Catherine recently joined us as our Assistant Enrollment Director. She received her Bachelor of Science and first master's degree from James Madison University, where she studied elementary education and family studies. A Northern Virginia native, Catherine taught elementary school in Fairfax County public schools for 5 years before leaving the classroom to work in higher education as an admissions recruiter. In addition, Catherine coached Girls on the Run for over 7 seasons and helped found the Marathon Running Club chapter within her school. Prior to joining Tutoring Club, Catherine already had familiarity with tutoring services and creating individualized plans for students from her own independent contracting days. And her enthusiasm for education does not stop with others. Because one master's degree wasn't enough, she's an ardent believer in lifelong learning when it comes to herself and has been pursuing an online MBA degree from Jack Welch Management Institute. Catherine, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle and tell everyone a little bit more about her. Michelle is passionate about helping students and staff work to their fullest potential and crush their goals. So we are really excited to have Michelle with us this evening too. She has been motivated by a love of teaching and mentoring and opened our award-winning center over 10.5 years ago. After a over 20 years leadership career in retail, hospitality, and professional services for industry-leading organizations, Michelle made the decision to use her vast experiences to improve the lives of children through education. As the owner and director of Tutoring Club of McLean, she works with hundreds of students every year of all ages and skill levels and oversees a staff of up to about 20. Our success has been spurred by her hands-on approach, our amazing staff, and the nurturing environment Michelle has cultivated. Michelle is also committed to strengthening our communities and giving back and believes that we can all make a difference in the world in which we live. Improving youth literacy in our area is of particular importance to her and is what led to hosting yearly book drives for local organizations who run after-school or summer reading programs, and to developing an upcoming scholarship program for children in need who would otherwise not be able to avail themselves to private tutoring. So without further ado, welcome Michelle.
Thank you.
And let's dive into tonight's presentation. To start things off, we will be giving a short presentation based off of the combined information provided by all of our lovely panelists, as well as our own information. Then we'll get into an open discussion with our panelists. Next, we'll give each a quick overview of each of our services. And then finally, we'll finish off with a live Q&A in which you can ask any questions that you might have. Feel free to type those questions into the question and answer box throughout the webinar, and we will certainly get to as many as we can when the time comes. Let's get started.
Great, thank you, Catherine. So let's start off, executive functions. Study skills come under that umbrella of executive functioning skills, which consists of 3 brain functions. We have our working memory, which is that ability to remember information in the short term. We have our cognitive or mental flexibility, which refers to the ability to sustain or shift attention as needed. And then self-control, which is that ability to resist impulses and manage those strong emotions that we have. When exercising these 3 functions, different parts of the brain are involved at the same time. Young children are just starting to connect or integrate those different parts of the brain, and those connections become stronger with repetition. What do executive functions do? They help students to stay organized, resist distractions, and tamp down on frustrations. You can imagine all of the study skills that depend upon these functions: breaking tasks into steps, paying attention to each step, waiting for the time to take a break, waiting for their turn to participate in groups, not falling apart when frustrated or bored, recalling information that was taught the day or week before, making connections with new information being presented right now. These functions are key in helping your child get through their schoolwork and homework with as few headaches as possible and ultimately succeed in their academics. We can see positive executive functioning skills play out in a number of ways in students' study habits. Some examples of this might include listening to what the teacher is saying rather than chatting with their friends, or writing down their assignments rather than trying to remember them hours later when they get home. Concentrating on finishing a task rather than getting distracted by video games or other activities or a text coming in from their friend. Double checking a math problem rather than rushing calculations for that quick answer just to be done. And these are just a few of those. Children do not have enough life experience or big picture perspective to understand why school learning is important and necessary in life. As such, it's difficult for them to self-motivate and resist seemingly more fun pursuits when they should be focusing on their work. We don't only see children fall into these traps though, but we also see caregivers too. Understandably, so many are under the impression that it's just too early to start thinking about study skills and that their children shouldn't be worrying about all this and should just be kids. While we certainly don't want children to worry, it is vitally important though that their caregivers begin to help them lay that foundation for building those good study habits. The other pitfall we see parents fall into is ignoring the connections between learning and physical activity along with a healthy diet. When we associate physical activity with learning, we retain information so much better. Our brains also have to be set up for success, and this begins with the foods that we're eating. A diet that is high in refined sugars and processed foods just doesn't set our children up for success at home or in the classroom. So, what can you do? Don't fret. There are some simple tactics that you can implement at home to promote those high executive functioning and good study skills. First, communicate, communicate, communicate. Ask your student, how are they doing? Is there anything that they're struggling with today? Be specific, but be gentle when telling them the behavior that you'd like them to improve upon, whether it's reading time, more study time, writing assignments, completing their math workbook. And when providing those improvement goals, be sure to start it off and finish it off with something they already do well. Bookend that feedback, positive, negative, positive. Set goals for them. Help them set goals. Break up long-term goals into smaller tasks. It's an easy way to make sure your child doesn't get too overwhelmed. Additionally, consider what it is your child might be willing to work for. If not initially for that personal sense of achievement, how about a new book? Or maybe they get to choose the next family outing, or they get a little bit of extra screen time, or get to play in a new sport, or they get that new toy. Then set specific goals that they can work towards to achieve each of those goals. Provide them with a study toolbox. Make sure they have everything that they need to get their work done effectively. And that also includes setting up a dedicated time and space for your student to study, which is so very important in the environment that we're going into right now. Set boundaries for them. Let them know when they are and are not allowed to be using technology to play games or chat with friends. If necessary, there are also apps that you can install to block certain websites or certain platforms. And of course, model a healthy lifestyle. This benefits us in so many different areas. Encourage regular physical activity and feed them brain healthy foods, those leafy greens, olive oil, avocados, cashews. When we begin modeling a healthy lifestyle for our children at a young age, they more likely will develop these habits and they'll become ingrained in their character as they continue to grow and develop into their adolescent, teen years and beyond. And then keep that encouragement coming. Be their biggest cheerleader. Those positive affirmations and recognition of effort can go a long way and produce even better behaviors. So now that we've learned a couple little tips, we're going to open up the discussion to our wonderful panelists. Catherine.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you to all the panelists for such wonderful and detailed information that Michelle just shared. So we do have some questions that we'd like to ask each of you that we often hear from caregivers. The first question is it really necessary to start building study skills from such a young age? And if so, why? Diana, we're going to start with you. Uh-oh, you are on mute.
It is necessary to build those skills as early as possible. And it is also better for all of us together as a family to do it as early as possible, because the children are more open to hearing from the parents. As you know, if you have older children, they later on get to the point that, you know, parents are less of an authority figure for them when they're older. They're more receptive when they're younger. Their brains are like sponges and they're sucking up all this information. And in addition, when we give them the message that study schools are very important and we're spending family time building those skills, we are setting the foundations for letting them know that this is a priority in life, and that we are all investing time and effort together because it is so important. So it becomes an important family value for them.
Absolutely. Fran, do you have more to add to that?
Yes, I agree with Diana. This is the prime time to connect those neural pathways to promote positive study habits and executive function skills that will benefit kids in the long run. The goal is to build grit and resiliency, and it doesn't happen overnight, but step by step, it will happen in the long run. To keep on the right track, I recommend that adults, as Michelle has said, praise and reward positive study habits. That way, the child is very aware that it is a positive study habit. They may have a positive study habit and may not even know it. If the goal is also to redirect or steer weaker habits to a more positive direction, such as saying to your child, congratulations on finishing your assignment. Now you've earned some extra time to go play your video game. And also be aware that siblings and friends can also, like Diana said, affect study habits through peer modeling and comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were all really great ideas as well. Whitney, what do you have to add to this conversation?
Thank you, Diana and Fran. I love your points as always. And I just want to point out resiliency and grit are two of my favorite words. So I love hearing those. I guess I wanted to share just a quick touch point from my experience as a first and second grade classroom teacher. And really the biggest downfall we see as classroom teachers is no matter what boundaries and social expectations and daily routines that are in place in the classroom and within the school itself, when they're not enforced at home, it's like back to square one every single morning. And now that we are learning at home, it's important to learn as parents to enforce those new daily routines and boundaries and skills at home. And my other point I wanted to add as well is that sometimes it's hard for kids to learn at home, at school, anywhere, and it's just hard. And so I love using the language, just pointing out, hey, I know this was hard for you, and I'm proud of you. And that itself can earn a reward, because we deserve rewards when we do something hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for.
So sorry for that jump. Lightning just struck and thunder just struck literally right outside my window. So it scared me. Sorry about that.
All right, we're going to go on to the next question. So the second question that we have this evening is, how can caregivers begin to recognize some bad study habits or low levels of executive functioning in their students? Fran, we're going to start with you for this one.
Thanks. I'd like to add to the discussion what I call the gray area of study habits. It looks like they're trying, it looks like they're busy, but they're not accomplishing what's expected. The child seems busy and is trying to work, but assignments are getting lost, they're not getting turned in, assignments aren't getting written down, pencils, papers, books are frequently dropped or misplaced. or can't be found, students with learning challenges often exhibit these behaviors that I call master of delay tactics. There are many solutions, though, that we're going to talk about later that will help resolve these master of delay tactics.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Fran. Whitney, what can you add to that conversation, please?
Yeah, I think I would just add the importance of keeping an eye on activity level. You know, I always like to say if our bodies aren't moving, there's just no way that our brains can work effectively, and we're not going to be able to retain information at any age. So all the more reason, back to our first point of why it's best to start as early as possible. So we want to keep an eye on productivity level with our bodies. If you see a kiddo kind of slouching, sitting on a couch, like Fran said, looking like he's doing homework, but you have a strong feeling nothing's going on, get them moving. And then also to just avoidance. If there's so many excuses as to why they don't need to work on their spelling words, there's a reason for that, and it's time to check in. And then also when you have a lot of conflict or turmoil around transitions. So moving from the next subject to the next, even when it's time, okay, school's over, it's time for a snack. Anytime that you find strife during a transition, I would say that's a red flag as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And Diana, what can you add to that one?
Another sign of low executive function skills or maybe poor study habits is when we see frequent meltdowns. Sometimes, you know, it could be a mini meltdown, like dragging their feet and saying they don't want to get started. And sometimes it's a full-blown meltdown when they know that that time is coming. And I encourage all parents to take those opportunities to observe what is going on with children. Children don't have the same verbal abilities as adults to articulate what is going on with them, what is hard for them, or if they're just feeling very emotional on a given moment. But those behaviors that to us adults are challenging, or we call them acting out, have a message. And they also give us the message that their self-control or self-regulation maybe needs a little bit more support, so that even when they're having strong emotions, they're not completely losing control. And that's where we come in as their coaches.
I like that word coaches that you used. That's a good one.
Thanks.
All right. And then our next question is, how does an online-based curriculum affect our young students in building study skills? Fran, let's start with you. Or I'm sorry, Whitney, we're going to start with you for this one.
Okay, sounds good. I think that answering this question goes back to my last point in question 2. And really online learning right now is going to affect how our kids are moving at home. And, you know, when they're at school, there's recess, there's extracurricular activities, but even little things like walking to the water fountain, doing a favor for the teacher, going down to the office, walking to the cafeteria. When we're in centers, you know, we have them moving around to get scissors and all sorts of things, classroom jobs. And, you know, as adults, we like to get our steps in, and kids need those steps too. So that's going to be a big factor. And I've actually been recommending for the wiggly kiddos out there, it can be really helpful to, instead of having them sitting in a chair all day, you know, when they're online with their teachers, have them sit on a yoga ball, and they can be moving around. They're also getting out some of their attention needs by bouncing around, but they're moving their bodies and they're getting blood flowing. Also too, as a little brain break, especially for this age group, Go Noodle has some great quick, like 4 to 5 minute, even shorter, quick, just like indoor recess situations, some good just energy burst that you can log in. It's free and they can access it. And just being patient. So when you see that they might be not paying attention to what's going on the screen, that's fine. Take a 5-minute break and and have them get moving with a Go Noodle thing. Because if they're not retaining, they don't need to be staring at the screen.
Thanks, Whitney. I'm chuckling over here because I'm not only sitting on a yoga ball, but I also am a big fan of Go Noodle videos myself. I used to sing along and dance all the time with the kids. So absolutely on that one. Diana, what can you add to that one?
Yes, I would like to add that when we expect our children to go to school online, we're asking them to be motivated to do all the work without the fun that they used to have. They used to get this social aspect, like Whitney was saying, the movement, also the novelty, you know, moving from one space to another, having different teachers, different students sometimes in classes. They're not receiving any of that, and they're not receiving the more meaningful interactions also with teachers and friends. And so it is completely normal for them to not be as motivated to want to be on online school. And in addition to this, we have to remind ourselves that since the spring, we parents have been in the dual role of educator and parent. We have a very strong emotional bond with our children. And we, all of us as human beings, we tend to fall apart. We tend to show our emotions more with our loved ones. And so it's something difficult to manage, to be both the teacher and the parent. And we know that the children are not going to, quote unquote, behave as well with us as they do with the teacher. So it makes it more challenging for everybody involved.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is to have your poker face on at all times, right?
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
And Fran?
Thank you. I agree with Whitney and Diana about the movement, but also movement needs to happen when you're actually sitting at your desk and not just on a yoga ball. And that's where I think young kids are definitely very tactile learners. They like to touch everything, and they learn best when they touch things and use all their other senses. And it's difficult to use your senses in an online environment, but there are ways to increase that tactile experience even in an online environment. So I encourage younger students to use paper and pencil or crayons to write down information, to draw pictures, to write by hand. It might be a slower process, but research shows that it helps strengthen those neural pathways for learning and improves their long-term memory and recall. So try to keep plenty of paper and even scrap paper and pencils and crayons within easy reach for handwriting notes and drawing pictures. Students who are old enough should have a planner or a calendar to write down assignments. And try to set up a school zone in the house if possible to mimic as much as possible a school environment. You could do a bulletin board to showcase a student's very nice assignments or anything they're very proud of, whatever they're working on. A calendar for assignments and days of the week so everybody can keep track of what's due and even what day of the week it is. Have a clock if possible for increased time awareness. For younger kids, tape alphabet letters to the wall so when they look around, they can see letters like they would in a schoolroom. For older kids, tape vocabulary and other terms on the wall so they can see, just like if they were in school, when you kind of look around, you see things on bulletin boards, you see things on chalkboards, and it helps improve recall and, oh yeah, I remember that information better.
Thank you, Fran. I love that word you used, the recall there. That's perfect. So we're going to jump into one last question here. So this final question is, in terms of pitfalls for this age group, what are some pitfalls as well as solutions to combat those? And do you have any additional advice to add? Diana, we'll start with you.
To continue on the point of how this is a difficult situation for everybody involved, it is also an opportunity for all of us to grow personally, emotionally, academically, for us to be more familiar with our children's academic abilities as well as challenges and their emotional needs. I encourage all parents to have daily practices of calming down when we feel upset, making sure that just like you have a designated space in the home where they do all of their work, you also have some other designated corner for calming down when you are upset, or even better, when you are just starting to get upset. And this is something where we need to assist them when we notice the nonverbal clues that they are starting to get upset. That's the moment to help them recognize that, well, maybe it's time for a break, right? And it's precisely the moment not to keep pushing them to do the work, but to take that break, because as Whitney was saying, there will be no learning if they are not able to process the information. And this is what happens when we get upset, that the emotional part of the brain overrides the thinking rational part of the brain. And so it's much better to have that practice of like, well, it's all right. If you feel very frustrated right now, let's take a break and let's go to this awesome corner that we already put together, and just take your time. And when you're ready, you can come back. And then they will really be able to continue with the work. And by the same token, we need that calming corner too for ourselves when we get frustrated with the situation or with themselves. We need to role model that, I really think that I'm getting upset. I'm going to go to our calming corner and I'll let you know when I'm ready. Because that's how they learn more powerfully from us when we role model. And then also because we deserve it. We don't have to charge through the day getting everything done. We deserve giving ourselves some self-compassion and saying, right now I'm losing it. I really feel like I'm not being effective, so I'm going to go reboot myself. I'll be back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Diana. Whitney?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dana. That was so wonderful. You touched a lot on my same points that I was going to make also. And I think the number one, well, I shouldn't say number one, but the first thing I want to address here are the transitions. And when I think of this, I think of, how on a typical day, we have breakfast as a family, and then we drop the kids off and they're on their way, and then we have a commute to work. So no matter what happened at breakfast or the night before, we can kind of remove all of ourselves from it for 8 hours. And we're just not getting that right now. So now the breakfast nook becomes either it was a great breakfast, or maybe, there was an argument that took place that none of us can shake. But now that has to be the school and the workplace, and you're all still together. So designating areas in the home where you're not only separated, but you feel comfortable to have your meals, to have family time, for the kids to learn and for you to do work, for those parents still working at home. And that will really just help the emotional space for everybody. And another thing I wanted to mention is, in therapy, we say a lot, to be effective, we have to meet the client where we're at. And this goes to, in our relationships, especially with our children, we have to meet our kiddos where they're at, but it gets challenging at times because we're emotionally charged. And so we don't want to communicate with a puppet, with a finger puppet, if that's the only way that they're going to talk to us, because frankly, we might think it's annoying because we had a terrible day ourselves. So it's learning patience and grace for yourself. And it goes back to the modeling, like Diana was saying, the more we model what we need and the more we take care of ourselves, the more we can help the little ones that are watching us.
Absolutely. Fran, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thanks, Whitney. Those are all great points. Diana, those are all wonderful points too. And I agree that it's really important, even in academics, you have to meet the student where they're at, and you have to figure out where are they academically in order to make the best connection. And I recommend working or correcting on one study habit at a time. Otherwise, it's overwhelming to try to correct everything at once. You're looking for an entry into the child's world and not to get shut out of it. For the student who doesn't write down assignments, try working on that first. For students who rush through an assignment, try to offer incentives to double check or offer to double check with them. For students who procrastinate, help them break down an assignment into more manageable steps. And for those who don't like to study for quizzes, try one of my favorites. It's the Leitner 3-cup system. It doesn't matter what you're studying. You put all the terms on separate flashcards, and if children are too young to write, you can help them write out the flashcards, and you put everything into cup 1. The student picks out a flashcard, and then if they know it without any hesitation, it goes into cup 3. If the student still needs to practice, it goes into cup 1 or cup 2 until it's mastered. And then you can put it into cup 3. It's a really visual system about where the student is and what the student needs to focus on versus what's already been mastered.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies, for all of your wonderful input and advice for all of those questions.
Yes, that was wonderful. Thanks so much. Every time I chat with y'all, I pick up a little something new. I really like having that emotional space and designated spots throughout the house for even adults to kind of separate themselves and model that behavior, or picking up on that mastery of, master of delay tactics. I like, and the yoga ball, I've always been a big fan of that myself. So thank you for all that wonderful information. So now that we've given our audience some information on executive functions, some of the pitfalls and solutions to studying that we see within this particular age group, and the importance of building the study skills starting from such a young age, we just want to take a few moments to tell you a little bit more about our organizations and how we can support students in achieving academic success. So Tutoring Club of McLean is an education center for all ages and abilities that provides individualized academic assistance and a customized game plan for each of our students. It's our mission to provide students from early learning all the way up through kind of college preparation with the resources and the opportunity to become confident, self-motivated learners for life. Our team is made up of highly trained, caring, and passionate education professionals dedicated to each and every student's success. Our families quickly grow to appreciate us for our warm, engaging, fun, and nurturing environment, our flexibility, and ultimately the results that we provide. And that's why we are consistently voted best tutoring service, best SAT, ACT test prep, and a top enrichment program by the readers of Arlington, Northern Virginia, and Washington Family magazines. And for our customers participating, or new customers participating in this webinar tonight, we'd like to offer you a thank you with this limited time discount. So for the next 2 weeks until September 17th, we're offering 50% off our initial student assessment, plus a free trial session and a free consultation with parents to discuss the results and a proposed action plan. So all of that is $275 for only $75, and we'll be providing details at the end of this presentation on how you can claim that. And Fran, what else would you add from a Tutoring Club educator perspective? What are some of your signature Fran strategies that you bring to all your sessions? I know you shared some great ones this evening. Anything else that you could add?
Thanks, Michelle. I find students really want to learn, and I find they want to do well. There may be some obstacles that we've talked about over the course of this evening that make it more difficult for them. So I try to make tutoring as fun as possible while still working through math, reading, and grammar exercises. I encourage younger students to write with a pencil and draw pictures. I help students break down problems into more manageable steps, and I help develop strategies to improve reading comprehension. I give students a lot of positive feedback for working through exercises, for trying exercises, for basically what I want to do is help them develop the confidence by mastering some of these basic tasks in order to take on more challenging academic assignments. The students I tutor get lots of positive feedback. And I feel that when they feel more confident, they're generally more motivated and enjoy the academic side of school a whole lot more.
Great, thank you. Great stuff. So Diana, can you tell us a little bit about the Amare Center?
Thank you. Well, one of the things that I love doing at my work is supporting parents. You know, children, especially very young children, have very little power in their hands to make positive changes for themselves. And so my mission is to empower the educators, and the parents, and any professionals who work with very young children. At this time, since we are starting on online school, I'm offering a package for parents to coach the parents, you know, to be the social emotional coaches for the children while they're learning at home. And this package of 6 sessions is at 50% off, only $450. And I also would like to invite you to a workshop that we have coming up on October 3rd. It's called Building Resilient Families with Yoga and Mindfulness. At this point, it's going to be on Zoom, 90 minutes. And I co-teach it with Lisa Danahy, who is a certified yoga instructor. And I will be providing the discussion for parents about how yoga and mindfulness help with the mental health benefits of the practice, and also particularly self-regulation, which is something that we all need, but particularly for school. And please visit my blog that is written specifically for parents at my website that you can see on screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. That's such a generous offer. I hope people are able to take advantage of that. And Whitney, can you tell us a little bit about the Wise family?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So we are a counseling and assessment office. We're located in Alexandria and Arlington, Virginia, and we are opening up our new office space in Winchester. So we're very excited about that. And of course, still offering virtual and telehealth services. So we work with children and families really of all ages and offer, like I said, counseling and assessment. But this fall, however, we're really trying to focus on the teen population in our areas, just making sure that they're getting the support that they need during this time. We've seen a big impact on the teen population. And we're also an LGBTQ plus affirming practice as well. So we have lots of new groups starting this fall, and we have a great team of clinicians, and we're just really excited.
That's wonderful. Great. Well, thank you all so much. Those are exciting offers. And now we'll open up some questions to our audience, and we'd love to know what's on your mind. What questions do you have? There's a little questions and answer box at the bottom, and I think we've had some come in. Catherine, have we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one question that came in is, one question that came in is, when I check on my son, it looks like he's on task learning virtually, but then when I walk away and come back, it looks like he might be off task, or he's just playing with things in his room. If his room is the only space where we can actually set up his learning environment, how can I help to make sure that he's on task? Is there anyone that would like to answer that one?
I could chime in a little comment real quick, and I had a question wondering if when you say he's off task, if he's still able to get his work done though, or maybe he's finishing early. I've known a lot of times right now that the teachers kind of liven up on the screen, but not needing the interaction from the kiddos. And it seems like this could be an easy spot for all of us to get in a conflict, in a battle with our kids. And so this is also a good time, which we didn't mention earlier, but really learning to pick our battles at home. And so some days it just might not be worth it to get in a fight over, you know, should you be on the computer or playing with your toys right now? And so, yeah.
I think that's a perfect answer.
I'd also like to add that this is when it's helpful to have things written physically in front of the child, to see, you know, what maybe notes he's jotting down. And I think this is going to be a very common problem for a lot of parents this fall. As soon as you turn your back, what's happening? So I think that calendar is going to be very helpful to, you know, jot down what's due and what he or she is supposed to be working on, and see if they can even doodle while, you know, they're listening to the teacher talk online, or work on some problems so that they're actually doing something.
And I want to highlight too, you know, when this generation of kids is in their 20s and 30s, maybe even younger than that, they're not going to be thinking back on what their teacher was saying to them on the computer on Wednesday afternoon. You know, they're going to be thinking like how cool, like mom and dad and I and my little brother could have lunch together every day. And really just focusing on those moments. And I think that's what we'll all be able to take with us once this all passes.
What a great point.
I think another thing that I found for some as well is using something like a time timer where you're setting just kind of those small goals. So let's work for, you know, 15 minutes, and then having something like the time timer so they can actually watch it count down and they know that they need to just keep working. I think that can help as well.
Absolutely.
I agree, Michelle. And I would also add to that, having a very tangible reward that they're going to earn by getting that work done. As you were saying earlier, you know, they cannot see the big picture and why it is so good to go to school.
Right.
And so we need to, if the child is getting distracted, it's because they're not motivated to do the work. And we have to figure out for this particular little person who is unique in the world, what makes them tick, what is going to get them motivated if it's not doing the work by itself, but it's earning something else that they're going to be able to do that is fun after they get the work done.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think it's keeping an eye on the work to make sure that they're able to do the work, that they haven't, you know, slipped behind and the work's not too difficult, because if they're left to their own to do it, they might not be as inclined.
Thank you. And I have one final question for you all this evening. There's a question about, I'm concerned about overwhelming my child with too many responsibilities so young. How can I avoid this? Would anyone like to start that one?
I can chime in. I would say that this is, well, it's definitely dependent on the child and which little guy you think you're worrying. Kids crave structure, and if they aren't responding well to it, they'll tell you, and you'll know. So if they're getting too much on their shoulders, you're going to see it in other areas. But also too, responsibility is a tricky word right now, because I mean, what does it mean to be responsible? Like when you're younger, but also when you're younger in this world. And so yeah, it's just trusting them, trusting that they'll communicate with you, and they'll let you know what they need and what they don't need.
That's a good point. Diana or Fran, do you have anything to add to that question?
I would say that if you have the intuition that you're overwhelming your child with responsibilities, it's important to listen to that intuition. There's a reason why you're having that gut feeling, that probably it is too much for them. And so one way to go about it is to work your way up there, right? To give them, you can maybe have your own calendar and say, okay, this week I'm going to give them this much, and then next week or maybe 2 weeks later, I'm going to add one more responsibility, so that the children can feel very good about getting done the little bit that we give them first. And then when they feel like they're really good at it, we add something else. And so they don't have a moment of feeling like it's too much and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Sometimes they get really discouraged. They are more encouraged if they do something, feel good about it, and then you keep raising the bar very gradually, sometimes almost in a way that they don't notice.
Yeah. It's all about setting them up to succeed, right?
Yep.
I think responsibility is an interesting issue, especially for children, because they should have some responsibility, but how much is too much responsibility? And when it comes to school, they are responsible for doing their schoolwork. And if they're not able to accomplish that schoolwork for a variety of reasons, whether it's emotional, academic, family issues, whatever it is, then that's where we as adults or coaches or tutors try to come in and make them successful in dealing with those responsibilities.
Absolutely. Michelle, did you have any final thoughts to add there?
No, great points.
All right. And I
Did
will
we get
let
through all the questions?
We did, yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for all those insightful questions and answers, and for attending this evening's webinar. We've enjoyed sharing our tips and tidbits with everyone. We have 2 more webinars coming up. So if you yourself, or if you have any friends or family with students in grades either 5 through 8 or high school 9 through 12 as well, those will be the focus of our next 2 webinars. So after this presentation, we'll be sharing a recording of this webinar shortly, along with details on how to redeem each of those discounts that we talked about. And then we'll actually have a free little study tips guide for you on building those study grade or those study skills. It's late, I can't talk anymore. Those study skills. So thank you again so much, and everyone have a wonderful evening and a happy Labor Day weekend. Please stay safe.